Good morning and welcome to the Budget Committee, September the 12th, 2023, 11 a.m. I will call this meeting to order. I would look for approval of the agenda.
Be it resolved that the agenda for the September 12th, 2023 meeting be approved as presented.
Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Warden Jones and Councillor Hentz will second. All in favor? And that is carried. Adoption of the minutes.
Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on November 1st, 2022 be adopted.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Sloan. Deputy Warden Jones. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I would remind committee members of any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none noted. We have no delegations this morning, which will bring us to section 6, reports and briefings, 6.1, Director of Financial Services, Treasurer, terms of reference review. Director.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee. The terms of reference review is being presented today to provide a quick review of the process that we did last year that we followed and the terms of references that are provided in Appendix A for the inaugural meeting of the Standing Committee of Council related to the budget known as the Budget Committee. Last year's process was done at the Committee of the Whole and started with a high-level council orientation session that was followed by approximately 7 additional meetings in order to provide a more detailed overview related to the budget development. And as we progress into the first quarter of the term, the budget survey was launched earlier in the process and compiled at the end of September in order to inform that process. An open house was also held at the end of the budget procedure and was held at the administration building. With a full year of budget completed, staff are reaching out to enlist the budget committee to lead the process for 2024. At the first meeting, it seems reasonable to provide an overview of the terms of reference to outline council's delegated authority. So the objectives of the committee, 2 slides, Stephanie. Thank you. That is for the overview is to review and assess the budget principles, allocations, and related financials, providing advice to the CAO and Director of Finance on the annual budget, to receive presentations from each department as required on financial matters, to evaluate the budgetary implications of proposals for new and substantially revised programs and services in advance of council's budget deliberations. Next slide. The terms of reference also includes the meeting frequency. So its intent is to have 1 full day meeting held in November and 1 full day meeting held in December of each year, with additional meetings that may be scheduled on an as-needed basis at the discretion of the chair of the budget committee. Reporting, the committee will report back to council on an as-needed basis. And just for informational purposes, the budget will be presented to council for a final approval, and changes to the terms of reference, if you decide there are some required, would need to also be approved by council. Further to the recommendation is that the report is received and filed, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
All right, thank you, Jen, for that report. Does any member of the budget committee have any concerns or questions with the process? Okay.
Okay,
Fine, thank you.
thank you.
Is there a recommendation at this point?
Yep.
Okay, do we have a mover and seconder to receive and file the report? Councillor Hentz will move. Deputy Warden Jones will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 6.2, Director of Financial Services, Treasurer, 2024 Draft Budget Survey, please.
This report presents the 2024 Interactive Budget Survey in Appendix B that is proposed to be posted online from September 13th to October 13th, 2023. The budget survey is one of the primary tools that we use to engage the public and focus residents towards the services that the county provides relative to our budget needs. Preliminary work has already been done on last year's budget survey in order to update it for 2024. The updates include dates updated to the current year. This year, we improved the information requested for economic development, planning, and land division to make those departments more so that the users had a better understanding of what those departments did. And then the optional collection of data we've added at the end for a weekly draw. New to this campaign is an ad campaign and 4 weekly draws. So we have provided in this report on the next slide, a copy of the social media ad that we would be using for the purposes. And this one did not upload well into 𝗕𝘂𝗺𝗏, so we're just going to provide it here today so that you can see it is mobile. It does provide a little bit of a flash when you're looking at it on social media. And so it's basically to show us how you would slice the Elgin County pie. And if you do complete the survey and fill out the information at the end, you could win a pie made in Elgin County. There'll be 1 winner per week over 4 weeks, and you have to complete the survey online in order to win. So one of the things is the winner's name, or the names will be anonymous. They'll be stripped from the surveys before they are distributed. So the people filling out the survey will remain anonymous. Staff will provide directors with the results of the survey immediately after it's completed and taken down on October the 13th, and will present that results to the budget committee at a subsequent meeting. The recommendations are before you for consideration, and if you could please provide any staff with any comments, that would be great.
All right, thank you for that, Jen. Just one reference back to the anonymity of the respondents. In prior years, the municipality from which they were reporting from was often recorded and given to the committee. I assume that would be the similar practice.
Yes, that will be a similar practice. And if there are specific comments within the survey that relate to those municipalities, we will share that with the treasurers and the CAOs.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have any comments and or questions, concerns? This, the original genesis of putting the survey out there was the desire to consult with the residents. We want their opinions. We looking for their expectations. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's where you're going to go, because I would expect that the council and the budget committee is exposed to a better source of information or more information than what the general public is, but it gives you an idea of what the flavor of the attitudes are out there, and to be cognizant of that when we go through the budget process. So that's the reason for it. Okay. Yes, please, Grant.
Just a question, after we go through the budget process, last year we had a public meeting and we only had 1 public member, Councilor Jagger's significant other, Jed, was our only person other than staff. And I think, we had about 4 staff members there, or 5, and it seems like a huge waste of staff's time I know maybe we have to do that, or it just seemed like maybe there's a better way of doing it instead of chewing up an evening.
Besides the staff time, there were a number of boards that were prepared for that. And then that was a one-time event, and then they just disappeared, which was unfortunate. So there were some resources expended, and I appreciate that. I really do. It seems to me that there's a desire to be as transparent as possible as we can. And I think what you're getting at, Deputy Warden, is maybe we find another vehicle to do this. I know that there are avenues to publish some paper copies through the libraries, perhaps our local municipal offices could have a few copies. And it depends. If we get at the end of the day and we're looking at, and I'm just throwing the number out there, if we're looking at a 15% budget increase or something like this, then there's probably more appetite for having some kind of an open house to explain what we're trying to get at. But if we're like last time, well under the even rate of inflation, Was it worth the exercise? I don't know, but there is an expectation to be open and transparent. So I agree with you, Deputy Warden. I think it's something that we need to be cognizant of, and for the process down the road, we'll find some kind of consultative process. I think it would be responsible to do so. Yes, please, Andrew.
Was my first foray into it last year, as the deputy warden said, and I guess there might be an opportunity to use technology a little bit to see if we can, bring in some more people, but there was a lot of effort put in. And it's a kind of a fine line between transparency and effort, so.
Agreed. Okay, so any other questions? Yes, Don, please.
Thank Jennifer and I did explore some of those issues just in preparing for this meeting today. And along the lines of what Councillor Sloan was just recommending is I've seen online engagements used in the past very effectively. In fact, it generated a whole lot more participation from the community. You're not worried about people having to travel distances or bad weather or anything like that. It's I strongly encourage the budget committee to consider working with Jennifer and the team to set up a consultation where the overview could be provided to people. There's ways that people can be writing in for their questions. In fact, they could be even encouraged to do that in advance of the meeting. So I think there's some real possibility. I think Councillor Sloan's idea is one worth pursuing. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions on this particular report? Jenna, please.
Be it resolved that the report titled 2024 Draft Budget Survey dated September 5th, 2023 from the Director of Financial Services Treasurer be received and filed. And that the 2024 budget survey and the advertising campaign, including any applicable changes, be released for public consultation for the period of September 13th, 2023 to October 13th, 2023.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Hentz will move and Deputy Warden Jones will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 6.3, Director of Financial Services, Treasurer, proposed budget schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the committee. At the time the budget survey is posted online, we also include a proposed schedule that so that interested taxpayers or ratepayers are aware of relevant dates in order to follow our progress, and so that the budget committee members and staff have the dates available to meet the timelines. The budget schedule has been refined to include some survey dates and proposed half days. Staff proposed the following schedule be approved for posting at this time with whatever changes you would like to make. So the budget survey would be posted on September the 13th. And from September to October, internal budget preparation meetings between departments will be occurring. On October the 13th, we would close the budget survey and compile and share those with departments. Proposed October 24th, a half-day meeting for the results of the budget survey to be given to the budget committee, and a proposed half-day on November the 14th for engineering department to provide information regarding a revised transportation capital plan. Those two dates could be put together, and we could just have one meeting on November 14th if it's what the committee desires. November, we are, according to the bylaw or the terms of reference, we are required to have a full day. So we would include that as an initial department presentation day. And proposed date for that would be November the 15th. December, we're supposed to have a full day as well. So we could propose a full day on December, a December date that works for everyone. And if it works into a half day, that's good. These would be to receive and file any departments that you would need follow-up information on. Then in January and February, we'd be looking for final budget documents with compiled changes and a to be determined period of public consultation on the final document. And then in March, we'd have the approved bylaw for the tax rates and ratios. So that is the proposed budget. I've tried to provide most value within a modest number of meetings because I know time is valuable. The recommendations are provided for approval with an outstanding item related to an agreed upon meeting date for a full day in November and perhaps December, and a change, if so desired, for the October 24th budget results meeting to be presented on November 14th. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jen. What are your thoughts? I've been through this process a few times, and the results from the budget committee the survey itself, our questionnaire, as I said, are interesting. They are indicative of what the mood is out there and what people are thinking. But I would say that they don't necessarily drive the process. Okay. I think it is more germane that we do acknowledge it and move through. But I think that the capital component is something that we really need to deal with. I'm just going to jump in and say it at BAM. We've gotten into the process. We dive into our capital fairly early. In fact, we'll probably have on October 3rd approved in principle a capital budget. And of course, and I think all of you are aware of the process. You get out there early, you get your tenders in as quick as you can, and you get some better bid pricing moving along. I'm hoping someday down the road, we can actually swing the cycle at the county to a more earlier process, like so we can at least take advantage of some pricing advantages. This year, we are where we are. But I think the process is fine. So what are you thinking? Do you want to have half-day meetings to deal with the results of the questionnaires? Do you want to combine them into a one-day meeting? That and the capital component? What do you think how much do you want to take in at a time? Yes, please, Deputy Warden Jones.
My experience.
Hmm. Yeah.
That if you're going to survey capital, you should be on point with capital more so.
Right.
My-
I agree.
Oh, sorry.
No.
No.
I just, sorry, I didn't have my mic on. I just feel that a one-day meeting
Yeah.
and capital in the afternoon, I don't know if it's best. Maybe I'm just getting too old. I don't know, but you need to be on your game doing capital.
I think so too. And of course, we recognize that we're just an advisory committee giving recommendations back to council, and they'll have their ultimate say. But I think you're right. We need to be on our game for this. So perhaps I'm starting to hear, and I'm seeing some nodded heads. Let's stay with the half-day schedule for the 24th as well as then the 14th.
Okay.
There's nothing precluding that we can't call a meeting in between. All right.
And is it the desire of the committee then for November the 15th for the full day to receive the departmental reports? Or would you like that later in the month?
Were you suggesting November 15th,
Yeah, for the full day, yeah.
full day?
That would be right. So the half day happens to be a council day, so then we would just follow after the council day for the engineering. As well as October the 24th, it's the half day would be after a
Okay.
council meeting. And then in November, we would take a full separate day in order to receive the budget.
It'll be a big day. It doesn't look like getting any way around it. The capital's gonna be in the afternoon. Light lunch. Will that work for you folks? At least put it out there as placeholders?
I anticipate the 24th will be a light afternoon. The 14th may not be as light. The 15th would not be a light day.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Let's go with that. And as I say, if we have to, we'll modify the schedule.
Okay.
All right. Please.
Be it resolved that the report titled Proposed Budget Schedule dated September 5th, 2023 from the Director of Financial Services Treasurer be received and filed. And that the Budget Committee meet on October 24th, 2023 for a half day to receive the results of the budget survey in advance of budget deliberations. And that the Budget Committee meet on November 14th, 2023 for a half day to receive and discuss a preliminary overview of the engineering capital plan. And that the Budget Committee meet on November 15th, 2023 for a full day meeting to receive initial department budgets with additional meetings to be set if needed.
Okay, that's the motion. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Warden Jones. Counselor Sloan, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 6.4, Director of Financial Services Treasurer, Department Budget Presentation Format.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the committee, staff suggests that the standardization of presentations between departments helps to provide consistency, then enhances clarity by providing uniformity and enables the committee to easily focus on changes under consideration. Over the past few years, there have been several different versions of a presentation format that have been used, and staff are requesting input from the committee at this time to ensure that we provide the necessary information that you require in order to make these important decisions. Some suggested items that the committee might want to consider is an overview of each department that includes mandatory services, current year budget with actual information from September Q3, a table that includes changes from the 2023 budget to the 2024 budget, the expected overall levy increases of the departmental ask, and subsequent meetings would focus on items that are needing further clarification. And we could also include appendices that outline the current budgets and the current 10-year plans by department before the changes are made. So additionally, in the past, the Budget Committee had asked us to identify and answer 6 questions that were to be included in presentations. These questions include, how did your department take into consideration the budget survey results? How did your department take into consideration inflationary pressures in your department? To what extent have you considered offsets? In other words, what are you willing to give up? What will you not do, or what will you do differently to accommodate increased costs? How are your departmental priorities linked back to the service delivery review, strategic plan, and other corporate departmental plans? Do any urgent items need to be brought forward as a standalone request? At this time, staff suggests that the committee may want to consider keeping questions 1, 2, and 5. And 3, 4, and 6 are normally contained within the changes to the departments, and usually directors will speak to those throughout their presentation. So the recommendations are before you, and staff await committee comment and input.
Okay, thank you for that, Jen. Any thoughts? It can be quite onerous actually for staff to actually have the 6 questions in mind and to come up with answers for that. But I think the directors, should be able to, and department heads should be able to answer those questions at any time. Perhaps it is more germane that I think it's right that, yes, how do you take into consideration your survey results, and how do you consider inflationary pressures, and how are the priorities linked back to the service delivery review? I agree with that. I think the other questions were put in place mainly to encourage department heads to think about, well, if we go this way, what are you willing to do in order to mitigate the cost? And I think perhaps maybe that's still ingrained into them and they're thinking this way. Yes, please.
I do remember that discussion
Mhm.
5 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. A while ago, but yeah, I do remember that discussion just to get people thinking. So I do agree with Jen's or Jennifer's suggestion. I think it should work fine.
Okay. Any concerns, Andrew or Mike? Does it sound reasonable?
Mr. Warden, yeah, reasonable to me.
Okay.
I just don't understand one part about what will you do or not do differently to accommodate increased costs? So is the question that was going to be under a different, it's already going to be asked? That's the part I'm not understanding.
Well, that's a question that Jen is suggesting that wouldn't necessarily be addressed by the department heads, but at the same time, it would be in the backs of their minds that they should be able to answer that question if the committee asks them. What would you do differently in order to accommodate for increased costs? I think that's what it's at. Jen?
Yes, so throughout the process, when we are looking at line items, we do discuss, you're making these increases, so where are we planning to decrease? If there's any cost savings, we always take that into consideration first. And you would see within the changes that there is an increase or decrease on lines. So between those line items, that would be their consideration of how they're going to save so that they can accommodate some or all of the costs that they're moving. Sometimes they're just moving between line items. We will need more money here this year and we won't need it here. So there really isn't an increase. So we're always doing that give and take when we go through the process with every director.
Okay. And I do like the idea of having the extra data around trend lines and things like that. Gives you an idea of what we've been doing in the past. How is it merit going forward? Do we need to bump a particular department in order to meet specific goals or aims? So I appreciate that kind of data set being available to the committee. Any other comments, questions? Good, Don, please.
So my comments are not directly related to what Jennifer and the team are proposing today. I think this is still absolutely valid in terms of moving forward, but just to table with the budget committee that there is another report that's going to be delivered to you sometime within the next month, I'd expect. And it has to do with some of the discussions we've had with the CAOs regarding growth.
Yep.
So two things. One is I have never met someone that's come to serve on council that hasn't come to the table with an expectation that there is going to be cost savings that can be found within local budgets. I think everybody comes out and you know what, that's a good thing because everybody, comes with a fresh set of eyes. But the reality for most of the time is every year we go and do this. Staff are also paying taxes. They're also trying to find cost savings. Hopefully, we're going to continue to challenge each other to be more efficient. And that's the right thing to do. But with respect to where we're going to be over the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years, is the growth. The sweet spot for us is going to be that we're going to have more growth that's going to be able to pay for a lot of the additional services. And from our perspective, if you have a growing population, they're going to be able to share the costs of all these different burdens, right? So at the end of the day, for us, having a discussion with not only this council, but also having with your local councils, a discussion about how much growth do you want to invest in? How much do we need to do to actually support the growth? That's a really big question that's going to have a direct impact on your budgeting over the course of the next couple of years, especially with the capital investments. So whatever we're doing here, I think is really important, but it's more, here's the status quo in operations. But I think we're also going to have to layer on that. Do you really want growth? And I can imagine that it's not going to be a uniform answer for all the different councils. It's going to be, you're going to have to talk with your own communities and figure out where you want to go and how much you're going to have to invest in, whether that's water, wastewater infrastructure or some of those other things. So just to table that, we did have a conversation last Friday with your CAO groups. And the commitment, what we were asked to do is to come back to this committee with some additional thoughts to council. I'm sorry, not this committee, but to council as a whole, and present some additional information that we can then table. And it's probably going to be a few months down the road before we're prepared to make recommendations to you. I don't think I'm still going to be here when that takes place, but things like planning and economic development and how that's going to be investments in infrastructure. I just think that's really important to consider when you're talking about financial investments, because the sweet spot for all of us is going to be to have enough growth so that there's more taxpayers that can share in the cost for running our our local municipalities and also for the county. And then you don't have to have tax increases. You can actually look at decreases or at least keeping things the same. So anyway, just important consideration. That's not baked into what we're talking about today, but it is coming to you in the next couple of months. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Don. Yeah. Yes, Andrew, please.
The other piece that on to Don's point, is that for 2023, 2024 rather, you're likely looking at some settlement funds from your friends in St. Thomas or the province. So that's another key part of this in respect to, I don't know, the costs that'll be delivered either to Elgin County or Central Elgin, but there will be something, is my guess. Is that not sort of from your understanding that it would be sooner rather than later? I mean, you've got some sunk costs that aren't coming back that they're obviously going to compensate for. So isn't that piece, the whole kind of compensation piece through the facilitator, something that we also have to think about as we go forward?
You can take a stab at it, Don.
So I think there's two big points. I absolutely hope that Councillor Sloan is correct and there's going to be a financial contribution to us. The one thing I'd encourage council to do is if we get a windfall, trying to determine whether the money is going to be one-time money or whether the money is going to be, for the next 10 years, we get a sort of a tax subsidy. Because if it's one-time money that we get as a windfall, then the incentive should be to try and pay for a one-time cost, like pay down your debt, make an investment in some infrastructure. If you use it to pay for not doing a tax increase, then the challenge is going to be the following year, then you're double, then you're gonna have to make up ground. So it's the general wisdom has been pay for one-time costs with one-time money. If you've got an ongoing operational cost, it's much better to do that with sort of either your tax policy or your what you do for a budget increase. But that's something that we can come back to with some recommendations. I hope that's the problem we're going to have. Because it'd be a good problem to have, is to figure out how to spend the money that's going to come forward. I don't know if there's any. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you for those comments, Don. And I agree with what you're saying. From a budgeting perspective, because we do not have a timeline on whatever is coming with the city. I don't think it's something that we want to necessarily count on for the budgeting process. But if it's something that we get, fantastic, then we can move it forward. But I agree, don't use it to undercut or underwrite your operations. Capital for capital. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Warden. And also Amazon,
Yep, it's coming
which
on.
was going to be 7-figure,
Mm-hmm.
which will significantly change the budgeting process. We understand we're going to get notice from them, impact late in the year.
Mhm.
We hope that's true, that they actually come through with a promise.
Oh, absolutely. Any kind of development like that is definitely going to improve the financial picture out there for both the local municipality as well as the county and for the services we do. But, okay. Any other questions on this? I think the process, or I think the kind of information or the presentation format, as long as it's somewhat consistent between departments, makes it a heck of a lot easier to try to interpret and moving forward. Okay. Please, Jenna.
Be it resolved that the report titled Department Budget Presentation Format dated September 5th, 2023 from the Director of Financial Services Treasurer be received and filed. And that the Director of Financial Services Treasurer prepare a budget presentation template that incorporates the budget committee needs as outlined today to ensure clarity and uniformity of presentations.
Mover and seconder, Counselor Sloan. Counselor Hens. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. 6.5, Director of Financial Services Treasurer, 2024 budget pressures and rate increase.
Through you, Mr. Chair. At this time, there are several budget pressures that staff would like to outline for the committee that will have an impact on the 2024 budget. Several of our union contracts are scheduled to undergo negotiation, and recently experienced CPI index increases have put some of our staff behind the historical placeholder for wage increases, which was 2%. When known prior to budget approval, we will adjust the placeholder to reflect the actual. Otherwise, there may be performance showing in a year as a result. For informational purposes, the July to July CPI increase is 3.3%. As interest rates increase, so does our cost of borrowing. It is advantageous for us to continually review the benefits of investing against the need for borrowing. As the Terrace Lodge project continues, interest rates have increased at Infrastructure Ontario. Staff have been leaning on reserves rather than take out borrowings. We have 27 million available to us that will need to be finalized approximately 120 days after the project is completed. Staff continue to advocate at the ministry level for additional funding for this project, but to date, this has not had the desired results. In the meantime, we are hopeful that the rates will go down so that our cost to borrow will decrease and interest is accounted for within the operating budget. As many of our local municipal partners are aware, and as we've discussed today, the mega site will being assembled north of the city of St. Thomas will have significant impact and spin-off growth and capacity impacts for Elgin County. Discussions surrounding engineering and facility capital will be revised to outline expected changes on Elgin's original 10-year plan. Staff have heard about the increased need also for essential services such as ambulance services. At this time, our transportation master plan has not yet been finalized, and there is an opportunity now to pause this to obtain new growth projections in order to reinform the plan. After reviewing some of the expected challenges in advance of the 2024 budget deliberations, there may exist a preference by this budget committee to provide a target rate increase that staff should consider while developing the budget. In past years, there has been no prescribed target rate increase for the county to achieve on its tax rate between years. It is expected that staff will take a thorough approach to their departmental budgeting that continues to support mandatory existing levels of service while being fiscally mindful in all cases. Therefore, the budget committee may choose to not prescribe a target and allow staff to bring their best budget forward. Staff requests that the budget committee provide their input on this matter for our information, and the recommendations are presented for your consideration at this time. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Jen. There's a lot of unknowns out there, as your report alludes to, and I think it's pretty tough for the committee at this time to come up with a target. I know that in times past, we'd say, geez, we had a prescribed rate, was it 3.6%? Well, pretty tough. Last year was a tough budget year, and this one won't be any better. Still a lot of unknowns, a lot of inflationary pressures. I know BAM last year hit a target of, it was over 6, 7, somewhere in that neighborhood. Inflationary pressures, and we had a goal in mind, and we're still on target for that. Are we in a spot right now that we could set that target? I think we need to go through the process, and then when we get closer, then we can kind of come up with something. It's just my opinion. Councillor Sloan.
I agree. I don't think a target in this stage is maybe the best idea.
Yeah. Yes, please, Mike.
Mr. Warden, I agree. Like you said, too many unknowns. And if I look at my municipal career in Dutton Dunwich, we've set a target and we put handcuffs on ourselves, and we're paying for that now, with 2% or next to 0% increase, come back to haunt you. And we're faced with that at my level, and probably the same story at the county. So let's see how the process plays out, and we have to be where we have to be.
I would agree. And I know that many of you have been through budget processes before, and we don't get ourselves hung up on the fact that when we're talking about a budget rate, it's not necessarily translated into a tax rate. So let's see what staff can do and come to us. And as Don had alluded to, there may be some spots where we might need to actually boost some spending in order to meet the goals and of what the corporation's looking for. So let's let staff come forward and do their best shot, and then we'll take it from there. Colloquially put, mind you. Any other comments? Yes, please, Grant.
I have full confidence in Jen and Don to make sure staff doesn't go crazy on us.
Well, I don't know. Don hasn't been here that long.
I also don't think it's like, it's a professional staff where obviously I'm saying it only, I mean, we're not going to ask for 3% or, you know, my preference is to ask for -3%. But I'm saying we have a professional team that understands, as John says, the challenges that are faced. And I think it's serious business. And I just think that by limiting someone to a certain number, you know, and I'm not saying that at the end of the day, we don't get our options like we were provided with last year, which were very helpful, I found in the process. So just wanted to make that comment, Jeff.
Okay. It's giving enough information.
Mhm.
So essentially then, for the motion that we can probably eliminate the targeted rate increase. Wonderful. Jen, or yeah, Jenna, please.
Be it resolved that the report titled 2024 Budget Pressures and Rate Increase dated September 5th, 2023 from the Director of Financial Services Treasurer be received and filed, and that the targeted rate increase remain unprescribed at this time.
Okay, we have a mover and seconder for that. You want, Andrew, thank you. Counselor Sloan and Counselor Hentz. Will second, all in favor. That's carried. Brings us down to section 11, date of the next meeting. I think that was prescribed. October 24th. I appreciate the time. Be the afternoon of the 24th, I'm sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can, if council is done, if it's a short council, we could put it right after at 11 as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Which brings us to the adjournment motion.
Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 11:41 a.m. to meet again on October 24th, 2023, following the county council meeting.
Okay, mover and seconder. Deputy Warden Jones and I believe Counselor Sloan will second that. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We covered a lot of ground this morning in very short order, and let's kick off this budget season. Thanks for joining us.